My name's Ed Gragert, yes, and I'm here because at age 17, I ventured across an ocean to spend a year as a high school student and volunteer in Seoul, Korea. That incredible experience came back with an incredible host family and language and opened my eyes to new horizons and, of course, opened my eyes to myself. And it set me on a lifelong path, really, to internationalize the perspectives of young people here and around the world. And imagine, I have the job where I get to do that every day with millions of kids. Well, you know, part of that career also was that I spent some time teaching Korean, Japanese, and Chinese history. And whenever I did that, I always had to make sure I had a map behind me. And today, just to be safe, I brought two. But they look very different. Can you look over the chairs and see them? What's different about them? You know, whenever, of course, you have a globe or something round and you put it on something flat, there's going to be distortion. You can't get around that. But folks, it's how you distort that makes the difference. And so, in a map where the land mass over there is approximately the size of the actual land, and when the equator is put up in the middle of the Earth. What? The equator is not in the middle of the Earth? Take a look at many of your maps, folks. What does it do when the equator goes south? It makes the northern hemisphere look huge, and it squishes the southern hemisphere because it's not important. And so I use this, and in my former career in youth exchange, I had this map on your right, on my wall, and two exchange students came in, one from Bolivia and one from Switzerland. And the student from Bolivia looked at this map and he said, "My God, look how big my country is." And the student from Switzerland looked at it, couldn't find Switzerland at first. And then he said, no, there's something wrong. That can't be how small it is. And I would argue that in that moment, there was a transformation of how those kids not only saw the world, but also saw themselves. And I use this analogy because for the first time in really human history, our young people and students have the potential to go beyond, to transcend the media and the filtered information that comes by way of textbooks and maps and TV, to go directly to the source. And who's that source? Their peers, anywhere in the world using technology. So I asked this question, what if? What if all schools in the United States were connected with schools internationally? So the students could put the issues that they're working in, that they have a passion for, into a global context instead of just a local one. And for me, you know, the internet's a big library, but for me the power is how it can connect humans to make a difference in the lives of the people who are connected, and for kids to see that there are others out there doing the same thing and committed to the same ideals. And so, I mean, we've heard today, young people want to make a difference. They want to work together to solve problems with kids all over the world. But it's hard to find those opportunities. They don't know how to do it. And also, oftentimes they think, you know, the small thing that I'm doing as a volunteer isn't really going to make a difference in climate change. And so, how can we enable them to realize the cumulative power of their volunteer activities? And I've been thinking about this a bit, and there's a web-based program by Sesame called PanWapa, and 4 to 7-year-olds. And it has this incredible tool that if the kids who identify what their favorite sports is and what their favorite food is, they can click on this globe, and all of a sudden the continents shift, and it reorganizes the world based on those likes. So that kids who like soccer can be in the same world, in the same continent. What if we had a tool like that for the service community worldwide? So that kids who clicked on the word environment, and then those continents shift again, and all of a sudden might come up a continent called Climateria, for those interested in climate change, or Aquaria for water quality, or Solaria for renewable resources. And they could find the kids who are in that interest area in a safe and secure environment to work together. And so this concept that technology can be harnessed to enable young people all over the world to work together is at the heart of what we do. And to explore, to collaborate, and to serve. So today we're working with about 38,000 teachers and about 2 million kids a day on collaborative projects. But I want them to tell the story. And so I'm going to share with you some projects that they're doing, some of the 300 or 400. One is called medicine in my backyard. Anybody know that language, by the way? This project has kids research what plants are in their community that have both a health value or a medicinal value. Plants that are just native. Plants that they sometimes had never heard about. They interview their parents, their grandparents. They bring that wisdom and that knowledge. They share it online with kids all over the world. And then they starts the other kids thinking about what other kind of plants are in my neighborhood. And they share this information in an exhibition with their parents, with the community, to share the learning. And then they then can actually use this information in their careers. Why is this important? You know, I looked up some statistics, and apparently about 25% of all Western medications are derived from rainforest plants. 25%. And 121 of the major prescription medications worldwide come from rainforest resources. And this is even staggering because only 1% of the plants have actually been scientifically studied. And so we're throwing things away every day. And so the challenge is, how do we find solutions to these problems? And these kids who are involved in this project are addressing this question. Show another one. But really, does collaboration really work internationally? I'd like to test it. Maybe. All right, in front of you, there are 12 faces from world personalities. I'd like you, without talking to anybody next to you, to come up with a number of those faces that you recognize, very quickly. Okay, everybody got a number? All right, now I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. Remember, the camera's pointing on me, not on you. And hold them up as long as you can. So those of you who know at least one face up there on the screen, raise your hand. All right, how about those at least two? 3 or more, 4 or more, 5, 6 or more, hands are coming down, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, this has never happened in my life. Anyway, but now what I'd like you to do is talk to the people right around you, the person behind you, the person next to you. See who you know in common. Who are these folks? Okay. 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 And my first observation is that you're having fun. And the second observation is that it's hard to stop you. And in our experience, is this kind of collaboration creates the motivation that we just heard about in terms of stimulating kids to stay in school and to pursue a subject better because they're working with real kids. Now, you wouldn't like it if I didn't do this. Is there a name up there you don't recognize? Is there a name you don't recognize? Gragert. Anybody know who she is? She, Nobel Prize for Literature, Guatemala. Thank you. Any other name you don't know? Hideki Matsui. I whited out the cap that said, exactly. And you guys are proving my point. In this room is the knowledge that could address the problem I laid before you. And that's the philosophy of what we do. Because out there is incredible knowledge, and our kids have it. And if they're learning together, they then can multiply the knowledge and address serious issues. And let me run through some of the projects that are happening. For example, the Bridge of Connections, or generations. You know, the older folks actually in Jerusalem were concerned because many of their family members were immigrating or were in parts of the region that they couldn't get to. And so the students, the Palestinian kids, came up with an idea. Why don't we train our grandparents and other elderly folks how to use technology? And so they went there and taught them about the internet, they taught them about Skype, they taught them about social networking so that they could connect and find And not only was it a transfer of technology, of course, the skills, but it was also a recognition of the importance of family, of community. And these kids actually made a difference in the lives of those folks. I love that photo with the small hand on top of the big hand on top of the mouse. Clean Water Project. One of our educators was haunted by the fact that kids in many parts of the world actually have to walk a lot of distance, sometimes up to 10 and 15 kilometers each way to get water for their community and for their family. And so she said she identified an organization that works in this area in Nicaragua and brought this project online to educate and to engage kids all over the world in addressing this problem. And so not only did the kids learn about geography, they learned about Central America, they learned physics, how did the pump work, they learned about health and waterborne diseases, and they learned how they could make a difference by raising a couple $100 and making a difference in these lives. And the end of the story, well actually it's kind of the beginning, was when those kids in Pullman, Washington received a message from a girl in Nicaragua saying, "Thank you. I'm now for the first time in my life in school. And I'm able to write this message to you and tell you about my country and my culture, about which I'm so proud, for the first time in my life." And so this direct student-to-student powerful interaction. Dolls for computers. You know, the problem that there was being addressed in Mali in West Africa was that they had no computers in their schools. But what they had was creativity, the kind we've heard today. And they made beautiful dolls out of recycled products in their community, each one with an instrument, each one with clothing from Mali to share with the larger world. And they paired up with schools all over the world on an entrepreneurial project. What if we sold these dolls around the world to generate funds for Mali, for the computers? And in fact, they did, by the thousands. The National Geographic store here in Washington, D.C. actually sold these for 2 years, also in their store. But again, a powerful example of how you can use technology to bring people together to solve a problem. I love her. Our footprints, our future. You know, happy Earth Day, folks. Today's April 22nd, 40th anniversary. You know, as I mentioned earlier, students often have a hard time. They can become frustrated because what the environmental actions they're taking seem so small. And I mentioned the one technology tool that we might have. Another one that we've used is a tool to aggregate the data, aggregate the actions and the result of those actions, and put it to students in a visual form so that they can see the impact. And so this Our Footprints, Our Future project enables them to do that. And so the whole question, you know, why turn off a light? It's only a few watts, right? But if you have 10,000 kids turning off the lights, turning off the faucets when they brush their teeth, walking to school instead of driving, they can visually see the impact. And they can also connect with other kids that share that same commitment. And so that sparked a whole discussion of why don't we set some goals here. And so they set a goal of 20,000 students working together to eliminate 20,000 tons, folks, of CO2. They're up to 13,000 students so far. And they're up over 10,000 tons that they've eliminated as a result of this collective action that they've taken. Impressive when technology can bring kids together. But just like my experience when I was 17, folks, get prepared. These experiences are lifelong. We're shaping lives like we heard today from a 12-year-old who is now that's going to impact her the rest of her life. And so what we're doing has a lifelong impact on these kids, in addition to the the volunteer efforts that they're doing. Actually, a few days ago on Facebook, I received a message from a young person in Pakistan. He wrote, "Hi, Ed. We've never met, but we certainly have exchanged emails when I used to be a student member from 1996 to 2000, 10 years ago. The sense of empowerment that I felt through participating in different projects has been a defining factor in my life and career. I now work in finance, and besides the mundane of work, I also write for newspapers and run a school in Pakistan. I used to participate in online student journalism projects. The exposure and encouragement that I got from seeing my work published was an amazing motivation. Now in my profession as an equity analyst, I write for a living, Projects like the Clean Water Project were extremely insightful and valuable academically. However, I think the single most important aspect was that it made me feel that my opinion was worth something and was being listened to by someone. In my country, where the majority of the people, not just teenagers, feel disconnected and marginalized, a global connection was a key life changer. These are just a few of the kinds of examples of what kids are doing, connected by technology, connected by that commitment. And so I come back to my same question. What if all schools in the United States were linked so that kids could be engaged collaboratively on service projects, development projects all over the world? What a difference, not only in their education, but also in the lives of people all over the world, and in fact, the future of the planet. And when that happens, it might look something like that, of kids all over the world doing different kinds of service. Thank you.